right? And there are multiple ways that you can engage in these warm openers. It can be as quick and as brief as just, hey, good morning, Joe. Good morning, Keisha. Good morning, Randy, as students are coming into your door as a way to connect with them. Or it could be a moment where you are inviting all voices into the space. You give people an opportunity to share how they're feeling, give them an opportunity to possibly respond to an idea. So it can be an opportunity to build connections. It can be connections between each other, but it can also be connections to the content. And we'll take a look at an example like that a little later on today. All right. And Shauna, did you want to pick up? You want me to continue on here?
We're just going to talk about 4 big ideas today. We're going to talk a little bit about the lesson structure. And this is, again, is a research validated intervention that was recommended by MDE for moving kids forward, the idea of acceleration. And it was also recommended by What Works Clearinghouse as a high level of evidence. We're going to look at 2 lenses today. So you're going to participate in some activities from Pirate Math Equation Quest as a student, and then we'll talk about it from a teacher point of view. Then we are going to talk a little bit about Fact Fluency, Desmos, which is a free forever teacher platform, and a little bit with Number Talks from Eurisha. And then we'll talk about small steps for implementation, what it would look like if you're going to pull out parts of the lessons and use it over the summer, what it would look like if you use it for a full summer session, and then how you might want to incorporate it through your teaching in following up years. So we've got all of those possibilities going. When we think about the lesson structure, the color coding we've copied from the actual materials onto the slides. So Pirate Math Equation Quest was not created as a digital intervention. It was created as a website with a teacher manual that you can print, a student workbook that you can print, and it was done for 3 different settings: whole group, small group, and individual. There's also a supplemental PDF that I'll show you how to get to on the website that also offers ways to print off the fluency cards and to print off the ship shape sorting cards and resources like that. So when we talk about all the parts of the lessons, we are going to look at how they approach math fact fluency. We are going to look at Equation Quest, which is really getting kids to think about the earliest ideas of algebra, which is totally appropriate for 1st and 2nd graders. So we're really going to bridge from arithmetic to algebra. Buccaneer problems, which are kind of the problems that you would do whole group. You would do those together or in small groups, and they're practice problems. Ship shape sorting is the really good recommendation that came out of What Works Clearinghouse, that students should not be using keywords. Keywords is just, it's been debunked. We don't do that anymore. And they really talk about using schemas and gestures to make sense of word problems. And then the last option is just some practice problems that students can do independently. And they call that the Jolly Roger review. So we're going to go through all those steps in just a few minutes. When you think about how the problems are scaffolded, the first 3 days, we're really just getting to know the routines, and we're thinking about counting up, adding and subtracting. And you can see the progression that we slowly add in different schemas and different word problem solving methods. You'll also notice there's a lot of growth in the Equation Quest, where they start off just reading the equal sign correctly. And that helps with students whenever you see a problem that says 5 equals 3 plus blank. A lot of kids don't read that as is the same as. So those problems are scaffolded as well. And you'll see that there are different schemas that are shared there: total, difference, change, and equal groups. And we'll talk about all of those today and how you can share those with students. Oh, and there is a website. The website has all of the resources on there, and we'll make sure you have that today. All right, I think Eurisha's going to get us started with our sample lesson. We can't hear you.
Okay, so we are going to engage in a number talks, and you may already be facilitating number talks with your students, which is a wonderful thing. Just want to lift that this routine, and others can also serve as a warm opener because, again, it provides an opportunity for you to connect with your students, to connect with the learning, as well as invite all voices into the space. Okay, so as we begin this number talk, I want to remind you of some hand signals because we're going to spend the first couple moments giving you an opportunity to just think quietly. So as a reminder, while you're thinking, you can hold up this thumb. Excuse me, hold up this hand, right, with your thumb enclosed. If you have an answer, you're going to give me a thumbs up. If you have more than one answer, and give us, I call it the L symbol, but whatever you would like to call it for your kids would be just fine. And then, of course, if you agree with something that's shared, you can also use this signal as well. All right. So I want to give you all a moment right now to think about solving this problem, 15 minus 8. How might you solve it? Do you have more than one way? When you've identified a way that you can solve 15 minus 8, I want you to go ahead and give me a signal. Okay. So see a lot of folks with multiple ways that they would solve this problem. Wonderful. So I'll call on someone if you can share one strategy with me. Would really appreciate it. Let's have Angela. I see Angela first on my screen. Angela, would you share your
Sure.
strategy?
Sure. The first, like what my general go-to is, I take the 15 and then I look at the 8 and I break the 8 into 5 and 3. So then I take the 15 down to 10 and then I take 3 more away to go down to 7.
Okay, so can you repeat that for me? You said you would break up the
Yep.
8. Okay, and when you say break up the 8 or decompose that 8, what are you doing again? How are you breaking that up?
I break it into 3 plus 5,
Okay,
or 5 plus 3.
okay,
And then because the 15 ends in a 5, so that's why I do it that way, because I can quickly then deduct 5, take that 15 down to a 10, and then I just
okay.
have 3 more to take away. And then in my brain, I'm saying 10 take away 3 is 7.
All right. Do I have anyone else who has that strategy? Anybody else do it that same way? All right. Now, I was supposed to annotate on the whiteboard, but for some reason it didn't pop up now that I'm in here with you all. So I did try to capture what I heard you name. And I heard you say that you would be able to express that 8 as 8 is equal to 3 plus 5. And then you subtracted the 5 from the 15, which gave you 10. And then mentally you subtracted your 3. Does that articulate what you were thinking about, Angela?
Yes, it does.
All right. Thank you, Angela. And again, did anyone share that same strategy as Angela? Okay, we got some different. Let's get one more strategy. Would someone else like to unmute? And I see Stephanie. Stephanie's ready to go.
I know that 8 plus 8 equals 16, and 16 is 1 more than 15, so I just take 1 away.
Okay, 8 plus 8 equals 16, and you know that 16 is 1 more than 15, and so you just take 1 away. All right, and you're taking that 1 away from what, Stephanie?
Hold on, the 8.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Stephanie. And of course, we could continue on. Well, let me stop for a moment. Did anyone use the same strategy that Stephanie did? All right, I see some agreement. Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. We could continue on and allow others to share. What's so beautiful about these routines is that we can provide an opportunity to build our students' numeracy. And we have the opportunity to allow them to be exposed to multiple approaches, multiple strategies. I want to share with you I was thinking about what you are named as well. So I have Angela's strategy. This is my sheet I had did prior to us coming together. So I use the same strategy that Angela used. I also thought about a number line, and you could go either way on that number line, right? If I started at 8 and jumped up 7 spaces, or if I started at 15 and went back to get to the 8, I would get those 7 spaces. And then I also thought about the strategy that was shared by, I think that was Stephanie, right? I also thought about, okay, 8 plus 8, I know my doubles, and then how can I use that to help me solve this problem? So again, providing the annotation, letting kids see it. I know this isn't the optimal way for me to represent that for you, but just to give you an idea, being able to see it and to hear people voice it and explain it allows us to connect to what's being shared. All right, I hope that you also consider using these routines as a way, again, of connecting with your students and inviting everyone's voice into the space, because we can go on and on. I'm sure there are more and more strategies that are available within this group. All right, Shauna, did you want to add on to that? You're muted.
Yep, absolutely. We took problems that were actually built into the Pirate Math lessons, such as the Buccaneer problems or the group practice problems that we saw just a moment ago. And that's where the number talks came from. Very often teachers are excited about number talks and they would like to use number talks, but picking an appropriate problem is really tougher than it seems. So part of the goal in creating all of these slides for you was to make sure that we would be able to offer that without teachers having to find the number talks that go with the lessons. So we'd like to give you just a couple minutes in breakout rooms to talk about how you're currently using number talks, and if this is something that you would like to integrate into either your summer practice or what you're thinking about now. Questions? Okay, so you're gonna have these breakout rooms for the entire evening. So go ahead and take a few moments, introduce yourself, let the people know whether you're teaching now, what you're teaching in the summer, or what you're teaching in the fall. And then right now we're connecting to number talks. How does that fit into your either intervention or your instruction for students?
All
All right,
great.
off you go.
Oh, got it.
There we go. Okay, on our Padlet, in the Oakland Schools column, you will find the stipend form, your W-9. If you haven't received any cash from Oakland Schools before, we need your tax information. And then we'll also have that Google Slides version of our teaching slides, which are different from the ones that you'll use as a teacher. So right now, the number block slides are a forced copy, but you can view them only. The Pirate Math slides, when you make a copy for yourself, that way you can make adjustments to the lessons. That's where you will get the slideshow for all 36 lessons. It is a massive slideshow, so it will take a little bit of while to load. I also linked you right to the Pirate Math website. And please remember, even though we've digitized this, this was designed by Sarah Powell and a team from the University of Texas at Austin. And so they've created this as an individual small group intervention. We've used the small group problems for our slides, and we did this all with permission. Sarah Powell knows that I stalk her research, and she's been very helpful. When you go to the website, you are able to download a full teacher manual. And this is kind of old school manual, and it will tell you how to have kids sit and how to have kids behave and to help you with classroom management. Some people really like the detail. Other people are like, I don't need that, but it's available if you want it. There's also a student material. So you can choose to print off the whole workbook for students, all 36 lessons, or you can pick and choose the pieces that make sense for the kids that you're working with. The supplemental materials are where you're going to be able to print off the cards. There are cards for fact fluency, for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. There are also ship-shape sorting cards that we'll talk about in just a moment. And there are Black Line Masters for collecting data and for giving you some of the other materials that you might want to use with students. One of our favorite parts about Pirate Math is it is very much meant for on your own learning. They have short videos that work for all of the different topics that you would want to teach. We are going to talk a little bit tonight about schemas and how you would do that and introducing you to the manual. There's a strategy of teaching kids to count up. There's a strategy video for teaching regrouping. There's a whole video that I would encourage you to watch. Even if you think your kids aren't ready for equations, watch the Equation Quest anyway. Their approach is really kind of fantastic. A lot of people use cubes locally for solving word problems. They use the acronym RUN, and you will hear that throughout the video. But as long as you have a problem-solving strategy that involves reading the whole problem and not picking out keywords, you're going to be just fine. And then we have a video for each one of the schemas, a total schema. And if you would, everybody, we're going to go part, whole. So we have gestures to go with. It's part, whole, and that's for total. When we think about a difference, we've got two different quantities, and we are looking at the difference in between those quantities. That's really important that we have two different things that we have a difference between. When we're thinking about the change schema, we're thinking about one thing that is going up or one thing that is going down. And when you think about equal groups, we're thinking about kind of distributing. So do we have some equal groups that we're distributing? And then there is a video about ship-shape sorting. And this is really the idea of using schemas, not keywords. We want to get kids to identify the type of problem. And this activity involves not solving the word problem, but thinking about what the word problem type is. The Jolly Roger Review talks about how to use those practice problems. If you have some kids that need a motivation boost, they have some ideas on how you can do that. And then also some behavior management strategies. A lot of those are just good basics. You've heard these things before, but it's nice to have the videos all connected, especially if you have a support person working with you, or if you're working as a para, that you have access to the actual training, which we don't always get to provide. So we're kind of excited to share that with you. So this is all available completely free on the Pirate Math Equation Quest website. So you do have access to that right away. The difference that we did is when we were looking at offering this last summer, we knew we needed something that was digital. So we reached out to the University of Texas and got permission from Sarah Powell to digitize all the activities and then to share the slides with teachers so that you don't have to come up with the format for every lesson. When you look at the massive slide deck that was made for teachers, you'll find this black slide with a lesson number on it. We pulled lesson number 5 as a sample, but again, there are 36 lessons. But the color coding kind of makes it easier if you're deciding to pick and choose parts of the intervention and not wanting to do all the pieces. So we're kind of going to provide you a way of how to navigate through the slide deck. So when you see lesson number 5, that will align with exactly what you see in the small group teacher manual. We also have a link to the flashcards so that you're able to see how that activity is being used to build fluency. Each one of those lessons will start with a warm opener. Eurisha showed you 2 examples today. You saw that SEL example with the blobs and kind of knowing that, you know what, today's a day where I really want kids to check in and tell me about their energy, tell me about their emotion. Then she showed you the number talk. That could be another warm opener. That one's a little more connected to content. We also built in activities like same but different, getting kids to notice what goes together and what is different. This was an activity created by a speech and language pathologist because her own son struggled with vocabulary. So this is a really nice routine, and these are, again, built right into the slide deck. You do not have to go out and search and find the pieces. Going back just briefly, all of these parts, all 5 parts are built into the lessons from Pirate Math Equation Quest. We just put it into one slide deck, and then we tried to make it a little bit more teacher friendly so that if you want to use your projection board or your smart board to share the slides with students, or if you want to have an option if you're doing tutoring online, I know some students are taking advantage of that this summer, that you can pick and choose which activities need to be hands-on, making sure that if we are live, we are giving students a chance to stand up and do some of the math standing and moving, because we really can't sit for 20 to 30 minutes or even longer without taking those breaks and without getting some physical movement in there. So that green, the green slides Those are going to be about math fact flashcards. And you can print those off from the supplemental materials on the website. You can also often find them at the dollar store. I think that might actually be cheaper than printing them. And then we also have digitized them on Study Stack. And we purposely set it up in 3 number ranges because you never, ever want to put a timer on a kid who's not accurate. So if they're accurate, when they're given lots of think time and lots of time to build their strategies, then we can ask them to, you know what, can you do better? Can you do a personal best? And so we have a couple tools there for you. Once you bring up the appropriate set for that student to practice with, whether it's addition or subtraction or multiplication, you hit reset on the website, and then you do 1 minute. And we talk to students about the timing being just like if I wanted to see how fast you could run a mile or how fast you can run 50 yards. We only want to run our fastest for 1 minute. And we only want to run our fast brain for 1 minute. We don't need to do math facts for 3 or 4 minutes straight. It's exhausting. And then we give them a second try with the same set. And then they get to pick their best score, and then they can graph that on our Google form. So we have a Google form where the student can enter their data, and then they're able to track that, and you get a really cool graph so that the student's able to see their own personal best. And we really stress that. This is not about being the fastest in the class. This is about having an improvement over the time. And we really want to focus on that with kids. If your philosophy is not to do time tests, that's okay. This is one of the components that you can just skip because it's not consistent with your philosophy. Eurisha and I both believe that the magic in instruction is between the teacher, the student, and the content. And so you're the one closest to the student. You should have the power to make those decisions. So whatever your philosophy is, we're giving you a high quality way to do a timed test if it feels important and right. And if not, don't do that part. There are plenty of other ways to engage students. Any feedback on timed tests? And again, there's no right answer because Eurisha and I can pile up research on both sides of this topic. No comments about time tests? Oh my goodness, you guys are an easy group. Is anyone in never ever? Like never ever ever ever? Okay, we have members on the math team who are never evers, and that's okay. We have different ways of getting kids to be automatic and confident, and that's really the goal, no matter how you get to it. Is anyone else? Yep, I've seen it work and I like how, Cindy, okay.
I love it. Yep.
Beautiful. And I think it depends on the kid. How many of you have had things that worked for years and years and years, and then you have that kid?
Mhm.
Yeah, and nothing is working. So sometimes we all need a new approach. So know that this is here if you ever wanted to give that a shot and look at something different. Or if you'd like to talk about how to do this in a way that makes sense. But again, math facts, 5 minutes or less total. And that's for 2 trials. This is zippy quick because this is not where we live. It's one tiny piece of how we want kids to be confident math doers and thinkers of math.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great idea.
Beautiful. And it's the same thing with number talks too. I will warn you, Eurisha cut hers off quickly for time, but teachers get excited. And then pretty much you just use up your whole math time and you're like, whoops, we were supposed to teach something today. So always put a timer on it. Tell yourself I'm going to spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then just tell the students we're going to put this one away and we're going to get another one another day. But challenge yourself not to let it take over. Everything has an appropriate amount of time that needs to be spent. I'm going to flip real quickly again and remind you that the math facts are green and Equation Quest is blue. So when you look at the lessons and how they're lined up here, I'm now going to my blue slide. And Equation Quest follows the idea of explicit instruction, which is concrete, representational, abstract. So the first thing we would do is build. The second thing we would do is draw or get a mental image. And the third thing we'd do is go abstract, where we would actually write out the number sentence. or ask kids to write out a number sentence. And Equation Quest takes you through all those steps. If you print out the Equation Quest activities, they're going to tell you to use some small cubes or countable materials to actually build the equation on both sides. And then they're going to give you the wording to make sure that students are reading. How many is the same as 4 plus 4? And then we're building. We're going to actually, if you're doing it digitally, you'll be able to drag these over. So you can actually build the digital version of it. Way quicker to do hands-on. So if you've got kids in the classroom, go ahead and print off that Equation Quest mat and let them build. And it doesn't matter if it's counting bears, counters, dice, coins, whatever. But you want to build that equivalency and get them used to thinking that the problem could have an answer on the left, which is something that kids often don't understand. So by using this, we're really getting kids to pay attention to how math sentences work. All right, we've talked about 2 different activities, Times Test with Math Fact Fluency and Equation Quest. And by the way, Equation Quest, by the time you get to lesson 36, actually looks like a single step equation for middle school. And the kids are okay with it because it's been carefully scaffolded through all 36 lessons. And this is one that if your core resource doesn't include this type of notation and building it and drawing it and writing it, it's a really good step to kind of include in your regular teaching so that kids really understand how that math notation works. So we're going to give you a couple minutes to talk about Math Fact Fluency and Equation Quest. How would those match or not match the students that you're thinking about today? Questions for me? All right, and we will send you back out again for 6 minutes. Amy, do you know what group you were in? And Kimberly, what group were you in? And Megan, what group were you in?
Ooh, maybe
I think I was in 2.
Oh,
Amy, you were in 2? Thank you.
Yeah.
And Kimberly, do you have any idea?
I was thinking 2, but maybe not. I don't know.
There were 4 people in there. I'll put you back in 2. Megan?
I was with Sarah Ritter and Michelle Hudson.
Gotcha. That it works well. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we had some people that had questions about using the digital Math Fact Fluency cards. When you think about addition set 1, those are going to be all of our small combinations, like combinations to 5. When you think about addition set 2, we're going to think about those larger numbers like 5 plus 7, and we're working towards those bigger addition facts. And set 3 actually combines both. And remember again that anytime we're thinking about putting a timer on it, we need to make sure that students are accurate with lots of wait time first. We never want to ask kids to be speedy if they're not accurate. And I think that's a step that's often missed. And that's where we might be getting some of the anxiety. That's also where we're getting kids to practice incorrectly. So we don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is go ahead and show you that if you click on the link for the study stack set, you have to first shuffle the cards. So you would go to the bottom here and say shuffle. And then there's a timer that actually shows up right here at the bottom. So it's really tiny. You don't even have to let the kid know when they finished up. You can just kind of let them keep going if they want. And this is really encouraging kids to notice whether or not their answer is correct. So if 5 plus 3, you can flip it over. If you got that right, you can drag it over to the no pile. And then at the end, you'll have a total of how many you got right today. So we're only focused on the positive. We know that we're already getting correct answers, and we just want to do a little bit better by the end of the week or by the end of our session. And then we always give kids 2 chances. How many of you know a kid that needs to kind of warm up before they really show their best? And that's just a really nice piece. And then encouraging them again, like if we were to run a race, I can only run for a minute. At the moment, I can't run at all, but that's okay. So if we only want to push your brain at its very top speed, we only want to do it really short. So it's not that I want you to do 100 problems in a minute. I just want you to do better than you did last week. And really encouraging kids to be proud of any little number growth. If you did one more than you did last week, that's exactly what we wanted you to do. And it doesn't matter what anyone else in the class is getting. So you have all of these study stack card sets already created. So you don't have to do that part. They also have little games that you can play based on the math facts that are included in that study stack. So it would give you some additional practice activities. Like if you have a parent that says, hey, we need work to do at home. Alrighty, here you go. And these are the same facts that we know the student is accurate with. Going back to our slide deck for just a moment, we also created that Google form. So there is a sample of a Google form in here, and you'll be able to make a copy of this. It's forcing me to make a copy. Sorry, I should have opened my pre-created one. And when you have that, you'll have the cute little treasure top. And then what was your best math fact score today? And they get to put their number answer in. And when they fill that out, they also enter their name, so they're able to track it. So you can have multiple students tracked on the same Google form. And then when you go to that spreadsheet of answers, you'll be able to say, oh my gosh, look, your graph is going up. And you can even give the student options on what color their graph is and what kind of graph they have, whether it's a bar graph or a line graph. And it really becomes a celebration of their learning. This Google form is something that when you come to Oakland on June 21st, we would be able to help you set up your own Google form, load your student names in. And if you wanted to try it with your students right now, you can meet with me on Zoom for about 10 minutes and we'll get you up and running very quickly. Has anyone else used a Google form for data collection? Yes, Sarah, how are you using Google Forms?
I use them a lot, but I use them even like just for day-to-day grades because I'm a music teacher, so I teach like a lot of kids. So
Okay.
they're super easy to just put in all my student data and then track it like that.
Absolutely. How many of you are pencil, paper, and binder people all the way? Christina and Amy and Therese. There are two groups of teacher folks. There are folks who are like, no paper. And then there are, I need a binder and it needs to be tabbed. So whichever version you are, there are materials to support that. So in the manual on the website for Pirate Math Equation Quest, they have the form that you can print out, the Black Line Master, and then each kid gets one. And then they're just coloring in each day how many facts they're getting right. Same process though. They get 2 1-minute trials and they always get their personal best. And that's even a nice encouraging. If they get one score higher than the other, they're like, look, this was a moment. So there's always something to celebrate. And then if they do happen to get the same score, which doesn't happen a lot, celebrate that anyway. Oh my gosh, twinsies, you are like the most consistent kid ever. So you can always make it a really positive experience. And again, 5 minutes, that is not a lot of your time. Questions about math fact fluency, how long we should spend. All right, how long should we spend, everybody? At most 5 minutes. The research says that you do fluency activities 3 to 5 times a week, 5 minutes. And that's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. If you torture a kid for an hour with math facts once a week, you get nothing. It just stresses you out, stresses the kid out, and you're not going to see results. Stephanie?
Just because I know we have like gen ed and special ed teachers, and I'm a special ed teacher. Is that
Yes.
different for
No.
special ed kids? Okay.
Ooh. Nope.
Because I took the it was a reading course, and they were like, for special ed kids, you make sure you do it 5 days a week instead of like the 3, that they were saying for the other. So I just wanted to make sure with that.
I would say that anytime you think about intervention, you need to intensify, you need to consider group size and time on task. But there's also that cognitive load piece when a kid's just going to bubble over. So sometimes doing it for 10 minutes is just too much. And especially with this activity where we're really asking them to be efficient, you definitely want to keep that time frame short, but I love 5 days a week instead of 3.
Okay.
Because that gives them more opportunities to respond. And we love that as part of explicit instruction. You'll see that abbreviated as OTR, opportunities to respond. So we want to reduce the time between their chance to respond. So either using small whiteboards or letting all the students respond quarterly, but we want lots of opportunities to respond. and not letting them know, well, it's going to go around once the circle, and once your turn is over, like, I'm cool till it goes around. Rachel, do you have that happening in your room? Tell us about it.
I just think, all right, I did mine and now I don't have to focus anymore. I don't have to listen. I don't have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I'm a one and done.
Yeah. Do not give them the opportunity to check out, and really varying that up. So do you have a way of getting all kids to respond either orally, chorally? Can we have all kids drawing something, all kids building something, but lots of opportunities? That would probably be the other moment that's hard to do, is if you have a large group, spending 5 minutes with each kid doing these timings can be trouble. So really thinking about, how can I get my kids somewhat independent on counting how many right they have, and how do I do that piece? Because honestly, it could suck up an hour of time with 20 kids. It just, how do you do that? So
Would
being
it-
really thoughtful. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Would it be good, like, so I don't really like using the online, but sometimes the kids are a little bit more involved, and I feel like with the online, they're more responsible for their own. But because I don't feel that they don't block enough stuff on the computers, and you can't monitor all the computers, that the kids are literally on things like, I have to face the desk one way if I'm working with someone. So each one of those, if you do the electronic version, it's going to go to like kids Google Classroom, correct? Or do you like set it up? Like, how would that be set up? Like
You
on their
could
own?
put it in Google Classroom as an assignment, and then
Okay.
give them the study stack deck that aligns with their needs, because they have to be accurate.
So technically
So
you could
could
pair
have
them
one-
up.
Yeah, you could have
and
one
have-
kid doing addition, another one doing subtraction, and someone else is doing multiplication set 3.
But you could like pair the kids up, and then like have the kid that's not answering the questions be the one to pull them like in the right or wrong.
Yes.
I just have, I don't want to say cheaters, but with my behaviors and things, that they're just going to be like clicking and pulling, and it's not going to be accurate for them.
Nope, this is real life. So yes, I think you're thinking through the right situations, how to get the best performance out of your students, while making sure that they're digitally safe, and making sure that they're getting the task done in a way that's meaningful. So I love that you're kind of thinking through, how would you make it work for your students?
Okay.
And it
Thank
may
you.
be something to try when we think about using kids for writing. In the beginning of the year, one of the things they tell you to do is to see how fast a kid can write a paragraph handwritten, how fast can they type a paragraph, and how fast can they do voice typing or speech to text. That way you know which output works best for that kid. So Stephanie, you may look at some kids and try them with flashcards. You may try some kids where they partner with you, and other kids might be okay to partner on a laptop or a Chromebook.
No, that's definitely, yeah. I mean, I have kids, I turn around and they're not even sitting in their seat anymore. Like,
We've all got at least one. All right, fist to 5. How confident are you feeling about using Math Fact flashcards if it's a match for your teaching? Okay, beautiful. All right, while you were gone, I went ahead and built my equation quest. And so all of these lessons are in the teacher manual. I am not just making this up. So you can either do it by printing off the mat and giving your students something to build with, or printing off the mat and letting the student draw, because that's the next step: build, draw, write. Or you can have them do it digitally. So in this case, I went ahead and built something is the same as 4 plus 4. And really thinking about how we would use color, asking the kids to drag over the different blocks that we have. There are endless blocks up here. If you ever want to make your own worksheets and you want to know how to make endless blocks, let me know. It's a whole thing on YouTube, but it's really easy. So it's fun to be able to create the digital activities. All right, so if I move this over quickly. So I'm going to build that we have something plus 3. Get these out of the way here. All right, do I have someone who's willing to be my student? Angela, your hand waved, kind of, sort of. Do you mind? If you're able to unmute.
Okay, I apologize, but can you, I was doing something else. I hadn't meant to raise my hand, but I'm happy to do what you would like me to do.
Okay, at this point, it's pretty easy. So I'm just gonna have you kind of look at B.
Yes,
What we're gonna try and do is match up what we see with what we're building.
yes,
So right now, we have something plus 3 is the same as 5.
yes.
Can you go ahead and repeat that for me?
What we see here is something plus 3 equals 5.
Nice. And Angela, can you tell me what I need to do to make both sides the same? How would you make the sides the same?
On the side with the red, I would have to put 2 more there, because when I look over at the green, there are 5 greens there, and I want, even though it's a different color, I want to have 5 of them on the left side also.
Nice. So now can you read our new math sentence?
Our new math sentence would be 2 plus 3 equals 5.
Yep. And I'm going to have you read it again and use the same as for the equal sign. I love that you know the name of the symbol.
2 plus 3 is the same as 5.
Beautiful. And so each one of the slides will either have these digital items that you can move around, or there will be a little pencil symbol, which indicates then a student needs to be to the drawing phase, where we don't give them the manipulatives that are ready to move. We ask them to draw manipulatives or draw ideas and shapes that match the math sentence up above. And then the last step is to go where it's completely symbolic. And I think we skip there too quickly with most kids. I know when I was teaching, that was a big mistake I made, is I would do manipulatives and then I would do abstract. And there was no middle ground. And what I missed was students being able to create the image in their head and to draw what it looks like before going symbolic. Has anyone else made the same mistake? I didn't know better. Cindy, what are you noticing with that? Or how has that worked out for you?
I think sometimes we don't give them, I don't anyways, give them enough time to like make one of their own or to think how they came up with their answer.
And
And
that
if
would
they
be the perfect thing to do next. Clear the mat and make up one for yourself.
Yeah.
What would that look like? How would we write it? How would we build it? How would we draw it? And really encouraging them to go through that. I love that you added on the, can you make your own? Because then you know really whether or not they're able to manipulate that and to make sense of it. Anyone else? Moving straight from manipulatives to abstract. I think it happens often in our curriculums that we see this great activity and we let kids play with the blocks and we let kids build things with 10 frames and sticks and bundles. And then we're like, okay, put it away. And then we start using all symbols. So really remember to kind of think about where can kids draw it, or where can we use a pictorial representation to bridge the gap. And so no matter what activity you're doing, you want to kind of think about that. This is how kids make progress. And so this is Pirate Math Equation Quest. These are going to have the blue backgrounds. There are 36 of these, and it will really take them from kids just understanding what the equal sign means all the way into solving one-step equations, which is kind of exciting. And you'll actually see multi-step. So they're actually manipulating both sides of the equal sign. All right, what is your confidence level on Equation Quest? Okay, got some ones, got some thumbs up. Beautiful. Who's thinking that this is not a match for their students? Does anyone think, nope, not a match? Okay, sometimes people discount this activity because it seems too abstract. And so this is just one of those things to encourage you that whenever you see those blue slides, It really is something that's exciting. We also saw someone this past fall pull out the blue slides. She was doing an intervention with 5th and 6th graders, and she was able to pull these out to really make sure that they were ready for some of those bigger ideas that they were going to see in 6th grade. So if you've got kids that consistently misread the problem, or they just make those common mistakes where they're like, well, the equal sign isn't where it belongs. Those are good moments to go, wait a minute, I know about that. Regina, go ahead and say a little bit more about verbal.
I just thought that adding a verbal explanation rather than just the most simplistic piece of it really ups the ante for the kids. And if they can actually explain it to you correctly and explain it to someone else, that really takes a much larger skill. I mean, I think it is, and much more needed.
That's a beautiful extension. That's something that we've done with students, is to say, okay, now you've got this math sentence and we know that this is 2 + 3 is equal to 5 or is the same as 5. What's a situation that matches? Can you write a word problem to match this sentence? So we would definitely see a different level of activity from students. I love that you put that piece on there. Alrighty, so the next step when we think about all of our parts of the lesson, and let me pull that back in again, we've really talked about math fact flashcards, and they're saying 2 to 3 minutes. I'm sorry, I am not that good. Never in my life have I gotten that done in 2 to 3 minutes, unless it's just me and one kid. So give yourself a realistic amount of time there. Equation quest is pretty short. You're only going to see 2 or 3 problems that are done with equation quest each day. So if you're going to do that as a pull-out intervention to supplement what you're doing in the fall, not a big time suck. It really kind of takes care of itself. Buccaneer problems. These are the ones that we would do whole group or small group. So we would work collectively to think about these problems. The Buccaneer problems or the Jolly Roger review are also where we got our number talk prompts. So we knew that those were right on target with what students needed to be thinking about and what they needed to be solving and having strategies to do. So very often, if you print off the student worksheets, you will see our number talk problem again, or you will see the graph problems again, because of how we chose to put them into the slides. So going back to our sample lesson for 5, we have a word problem, and this is part of those practice problems. And we included the solving charts. So part of the intervention is talking about RUN, which gives you the acronym, read the problem, underline the label, and then name the problem type. That's where you're going to name your schema. We also have these anchor charts for how you use total and what questions you might want to ask yourself. So all of these teaching charts are included in the teacher manual. And then there's a nice printable version in that supplemental materials right from the website. How many of you like to use anchor charts with students? Okay, beautiful. They're already created for you. I think that's always nice when you don't have to recreate the wheel. Sometimes people will say, well, I don't know if my kids will get P1 and P2. Really reinforce that with gestures. So when we're thinking about the total problem up here in the corner, make that a little bigger there for you. So when we're thinking about that total problem, I'm thinking part, total. So I've got that gesture going, part, total, and those parts are coming together. So that can help kids make sense of those abbreviations. We also have this, what do we need to think about? So if you've identified the schema, if your students are able to say, oh, this is a total problem, the question that you can use to help, like your metacognitive question, are there parts that go together to make a total? That's how I'm going to help identify that schema. If it's a difference problem, are there 2 amounts that are being compared for a difference? That's a key part of a difference problem, is that we have 2 different amounts for a difference. The change problem is one thing that's going up or down, or getting bigger or smaller. And that really helps kids narrow in on that. And then when we think about equal groups, do we have something that we see again and again, the same group. That's where we're looking for the equal group schema. And then there's going to be a couple ways that we would practice these problems. So there are two things that you can do with the practice problems. You can either focus just on identifying the schema, or you can identify the schema and then solve the problem. Both are totally appropriate, and it really depends on how long it takes your kids to do the reading part. How many of you's like, yeah, the reading part is why my kids get lost? Absolutely. So we need to work through whether or not we're able to read it. There are words that are not even important to the problem, like carpenter, that may be a stumbling block for kids. So how do we either read it aloud, or how do we help them work through that so they're not so stuck on the vocabulary that they can't make sense of the word problem? And so there are also videos, again, remember, on the website, and you get paid to watch those videos on your own. And so you will hear the researchers, Dr. Berry and Dr. Powell, introducing all of these schemas and showing you examples of how to teach the schemas, how to use the run strategy to solve all word problems. So those pieces are all included. The practice problems are purple. And again, these are group practice. We really don't want to send a kid off to do all these problems by themselves. That's not the intention of the intervention. We also split out the practice problems to make them kind of a notice and wonder. So they always include a graph. And what's really interesting is I heard someone not too long ago say that every graph is really a word problem. It's just put in picture form. So when you think about that graph right there, what are some questions that we could do based on that graph? What are some questions that we could either ask or answer? If you would, go ahead and put something in chat. What's a good question that you have an answer for, or that we could figure out? Absolutely. And Therese, how many of your kids would say Molly has 2 baseball cards? Because they didn't read the key that each baseball is 10, which really tells you something about your student. How many more cards does Katie have than Lamar? Beautiful. Who has the most or least? Nice. And so some of these answers will be student names or names from the graph. Some of these answers will be numerical. Some of these answers require me to know that each baseball means 10. Beautiful. So this is the idea of taking the graph that's included in the practice problems, because we see our purple background. So this is a regular practice problem that if you just printed off the student workbook, this question is already there. So the actual question is, Lamar and Joe have 70 baseball cards together. How many cards does Joe have? And I don't think anyone asked that question. And that's okay. So how many cards does Lamar have? Because we would need that information to figure this out. Lamar has how many?
40.
40. Beautiful. And together they have 70. So what kind of problem is this?
Difference.
Ooh, it sounds like a difference, but it's not. You're going to subtract. So a lot of people will say difference. And this is, this took me a long time when I started using this intervention.
Is it part whole?
Yes, because Lamar has a collection and Joe has a collection. Together they make 70. If it were a difference problem, the question would be, how many more cards does Lamar have than Joe? So that would be a difference problem. And if this feels icky, it did to me too. Schemas are not the way I learned word problems. And so the ship-shape sorting activity that we'll talk about next is where you really get into how that's going to work and helping kids to make sense of that piece. But take a look at all the high quality questions that you came up with in chat. How important would it be for kids to generate questions and then to take turns? Whose question do we want to answer? So let's see, Amy asked, how many baseball cards does Molly and Katie have? What kind of problem is that, Amy?
Total problem.
It's a part whole because Molly has some, Katie has some, and together they have how many? And so what would the answer be for Amy's question?
70.
70. Thank you, Christina. Wait time virtually is awful. And how many of your kids might say 7? And that's okay. That's a conversation. I can see that you found 7 baseballs, but there's more information. What do we do with that information? And if we need to, we would take sticks and bundles and we would build. Katie has 10. Katie has 5 groups of 10. Molly has 2 groups of 10. How many? All together. Go right back to CRA. Build it, draw it, write it. And you can really support kids learning through this. And so again, this is one activity that's in the practice problems, but look at how we can open it up and make it really powerful. So if you look at this in the student workbook, it's just going to be a problem with a question. But what we did when we made the slides is we made it an open problem, which we thought was a lot more interesting. We'd like to give you a few minutes and talk about the difference from using something that's in a workbook to using a problem that's been opened up. What would be good about that? Does that work for your kids? How do you feel about using the graph as a starting point for a notice and wonder open problem? Okay, I'm gonna send you back off to talk to your folks.
Would it be culturally responsive?
Well,
Well, it's multiple perspective. Oh, you said Teresa.
Eureka,
Eurisha.
Oh, but no, Teresa, I would love to hear your thinking as well. No,
Go.
So I think, yeah. So if we're defining culture as what is most meaningful to our kids, it could definitely take us there. It really just depends on what they decide to share. But I absolutely think we are definitely attending to some of our SEL competencies. We are giving our students an opportunity to share their thinking. They get to regulate themselves because so they're deciding, what might I share? What question should I ask? What feels most appropriate in this space? And then of course, as always, when you are inviting your kids in, you're telling them that what they have to say matter, that they have something that's important and valuable to contribute to the conversation. And that helps to build their identity. And we know that when kids have really positive math identities, they're going to participate more, they're going to engage more. And the more they participate, the more they engage with this in meaningful ways, you know that they are learning more. So it provides a wonderful opportunity. Yep.
As the teacher, you're able to make the choice if the students write their questions down or if they just share them out loud. And then like Eurisha did, highlighting a student, or Therese was talking about with letting that student feel confident. How awesome would it be if I pick their question that everyone has to solve? Or letting them pair up and see if that person can solve your question. But lots of possibilities from one prompt that you did not have to search on Google, you did not have to pay for on TPT. We want to make it easy so that you can focus on asking good questions and engaging those students. So teaching is hard enough already. Having to create everything is just crap. So if you are excited about using some of these activities, please remember that Eurisha has put together warm openers and hopeful endings that you can use tomorrow. You can use them with whichever curriculum you're using, with whatever students are in front of you, but really remembering to take those moments. And like Therese said, building that mathematical identity. How do we put those moments in? And I know people feel like they have no time, but honestly, there's no time better to make sure kids are with you. It just makes all the difference. Eurisha, how long do you think most of the openers or the hopeful endings last?
Really will depend on how many kids you have in the space, but 5 to 10 minutes and possibly less. And some of them we give like specific instructions about how you might have more than one round. So you might have a round of everyone sharing in some of the activities, but depending on your time, particularly like with your closures, you may just lean into the student that hasn't really shared, hasn't been as engaged as others, to invite their voice into the space. So you, of course, as a teacher in the classroom, you get to make that decision, but you get to be really intentional about doing that. So yeah, 5 to 10 minutes should be enough with each of them.
And I think that's just a good investment in making sure students are ready to learn and engaged in the lesson, and they know that that you care about what they're sharing and saying, that you value their input into what's going on. And when you open up a problem like we did with the graphs, you're really saying, what's important to you? What are you curious about? So it's a beautiful way of doing that with no additional prep on the teacher part, just making those decisions, like Eurecia said, of whether students are going to share in pairs, whether they're going to share a whole group, and then how much time you're going to allow for that. So, and I don't know about you, but I am really starting to live on a timer to try and remind myself. So I know that it's almost 5:30 and I know what I need to be doing next. So I'm walking the talk here and encouraging you, even if you've never used timers in the classroom, there's something really good about knowing that you don't leave off something important at the end. How many of you know that geometry has not been taught too much the last couple of years because it's at the end of almost every math book? Yeah, okay, I'm seeing lots of nodding. We all do it. So I'm going to encourage you, use a timer, kind of try and stay on track so that we don't end up with something that really just sort of falls right off the edge. All right, there are additional word problems that you can, again, make the choice. These are in the workbook or they are digital, and you can solve these two ways. You can either choose just to identify the schema, and these are the ones that we're doing together, small group or whole group. So we're doing our thinking out loud. And so you can either identify the schema for all three, or we can pick one and solve it, but it gives you lots of possibilities, and all of the prompts have already been created. So just more options for you, but you could print these off in workbook form. All right, we're going to dig a little bit into ship shape sorting cards. We have these created as a Desmos activity. Thumbs up if you are already using Desmos. Okay, Desmos is amazing and awesome and wonderful. And if you have not used Desmos, I would encourage you when you come in on the 21st that we're going to have some practice activities so you can see how awesome it is. It is not a bait and switch where you sign up as a teacher and then all the good stuff is paid. It's free forever. So I'm very confident in telling you that if you put your time into learning Desmos, there are already pre-created activities for every grade level, all the way through calculus. And then there are some really good activities that get kids asking questions. Those are called polygraphs. And then we put these activities into Desmos. So you have two options for ship shape sorting. And this is where we're going to sort word problems based on schema. So you can see on the right, that's a screenshot of one of the pages. So you would print these off front to back, and thumbs up if you would like a printed card set. Yeah, we're already working on it. So you will end up with digital and paper. So you can do it either way with your kids. The answers will be on the back. So you're going to keep these all face up with the words, and then you're going to ask kids to sort. And we're going to sort initially with total, difference, and change. Once kids get a little bit more experience, you can add in the equal group problems, but I wouldn't start there. So if you would like to try the digital version, we're going to use that on Desmos, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Also remember that the Pirate Math Equation website has a little video to explain how to do this with the cards. Anytime, if you are a person too who is like, I'm not using this till September, how many of you will forget how to use this by September? Yeah. My kid's 30 years old and I swear pregnancy brain never came back. So if you are like me, having these short videos to go, oh, wait a minute, that was good stuff. It's really nice to have the videos to kind of bring that back. But today, so there are the pencil and paper versions, there are the card versions. You will have all of those. We're going to print them off and we're going to give them to you at the end of June. And then you're also going to get some other manipulatives, by the way. We include some really cool tools for using number talks. You're going to get an empty number line that you can do with dry erase. You're going to get some part whole dry erase boards, lots of fun activities to let you really have a good time with students. So that's included as part of your participation. And right now we're going to see how to do it as in Desmos. And so Desmos allows us to do card sorts. Card sorts are really powerful because they lower the language load. Students don't need to read out loud to get these activities, and you can do it a couple different ways. You can assign a Desmos activity in Google Classroom, or you can just give students a code, which is what we're going to do now. Sorry, my Google phone is having a fit. Or you can put the Desmos activity on the board and let the class work on it together. So we purposely included all of these pieces so that students are reinforced with gestures. Gestures also reduces the language load. So we really want kids to think about part, part, whole, part, total. Difference has two things that are different, and we need to find out what's happening in between. A change has one thing that's going up or down, and then those equal groups that we're making as we go. So we have all of those possibilities. When you do the Desmos activity, the first 14 screens are just the adding and subtracting schemas. So only those 3. When you get to screens 15 through 20, you're going to add in some equal group problems. And then beyond 20, we actually have a few extra cards. So it gets a little more difficult as they go. I also built in some metacognitive questioning. So as you do the activities, I will ask students to think about the activity that they just did. Oh, Angela, you can just assign it online. You're going to do it right now. So let me copy the link. And you can either have students go to student.desmos.com, or you can go ahead and click on the link now. Yes, everyone can do it on the same time individually. Desmos is amazing. So when you click on that screen, you'll see a couple different ways. You can sign in with your Google email. You can sign in with Desmos, which you don't have right now, or you continue without signing in. Just choose that. And you can enter your name. And then I'm going to show you how to sort the cards and what happens as you go. So at the top, you get immediate feedback. Have you found all of the matches? Not yet. Keep thinking. Let students know that when all of the matches are done correctly, that a message at the top will change. So as we're looking at these problems, we have Emmy has 3 snacks. Jess has 2. How many do they have in all? Is that a total, a change, or a difference? Total, thank you. So when you want to snap a card together, you drag it over, and when it's highlighted blue, it snaps. Very satisfying. And then, all right, Ed read 2 books during summer vacation. Monica read 3 books. How many more books did Monica read than Ed? What kind of problem is that? Difference. Ed read 2. Monica read 3. How many more books did Monica read than Ed? So we're going to drag that over to difference. Drag that out of the way here. All right. Kieran has 3 more puppies than David. David has 6 puppies. How many puppies does Karen have?
Difference.
Difference, okay. John played 3 games of soccer and 2 games of basketball last weekend. How many games did John play in all?
Total.
Okay. Evan saw 6 fire trucks at the station, then 2 trucks drove away. How many trucks are at the fire station? So we had 6, 2 drove away, 1 quantity is changing.
What happens if you get it wrong? Does it just not click?
It'll tell you to keep thinking. Did you notice? Hang on a second. Watch at the top. Have you found all the matches? Not yet. Keep thinking.
Got it.
Have you found all the matches? Yes. Nice sorting.
Thanks.
So as you go through, and then I'm going to log into my teacher dashboard so you can see what I can see. Go ahead and solve through a couple screens. You can scroll through by clicking on the top right corner next, and you can see all the different prompts. And then I'll show you from the teacher side the amazing things that they build into the dashboard. So go ahead and take 3 minutes and solve some. And by the way, I'll be able to see what you've done. So give it your best shot. So I've got 15 of you in the activity. And get a load of this. I can tell which activity you're on. I can tell if you got it right or wrong. I can pause the whole class and say, oops, listen to me, folks. We need to regroup here. And I can let you get back on your way. I can also hit anonymize. So nobody knows who I'm watching. You know who you are, but not everybody else in the class will. So we can protect your identity and make you feel safe. No, Regina, they purposely write the words so that keywords don't work. Or they purposely write the questions so that keywords don't work all the time. Going to give you another 2 minutes to play with some of the activities and see what some of the messages are. Remember, you're focused on what the action is in the problem, not the operation. That for me took a lot of practice. I had to go back and watch the video again from the website because I'm like, I am missing something here. If you use the cards that we're going to print off for you, there will be some references to Christmas and Halloween and a few other things that we cleaned out because we know not everyone talks about holidays. So we tried to be a little bit more respectful and just try not to do anything controversial. So you will see some differences between the word problems on Desmos and the word problems that will be printed on your cards. And so you can do with those as you like. All right, little bit of feedback doing this as a student. And I'm going to unanonymize here for just a moment. Nope, I'm going to leave it anonymous. Elizabeth, are you willing to share? How did this go for you as a student? And you don't have to tell us who you are, because right now these are all famous mathematicians. So we have no idea how you're doing.
Yeah, kind of same like you said. I think I'm thinking more of the question and less of the operation. So you have to like do that different mindset. And a couple of them, it was like I kept getting it wrong. So I was like, oh, so I just went on to the next card. But definitely thinking about it differently.
And that's what we're hoping for. So even if it feels a little bit out of sorts, go with the process and really think about, do I have part, whole? Do I have two quantities and something's happening in between? Do I have one quantity that's changing? And really getting kids to practice those gestures. If I were introducing this to kids, I might do it whole group on a big screen first so that they know how to snap the cards. They know what to look for to tell if they got it right or wrong. And then I put those questions in there so you can kind of talk to the group. How did you like sorting the cards? Would you rather do this with a partner? Can you make the gesture for part total? All of those pieces to kind of help the activity slow down and pay attention to what we're thinking here. I agree with that, Angela. The thing that helped me most is, do we have one thing that's changing, or do we have two things that are being compared? That made a big difference. And I wasn't paying attention to that when I was originally doing the problem. So I love that you were in the same place I was. And I told you, Risha, I said, I went back and I'm like, did I do the key wrong? Because something's not working. So go back and watch the video again. And this is that really big idea that you see on the What Works Clearinghouse, National Center for Intensive Interventions. Schemas is really where we want kids paying attention to the structure of the word problem. On the Desmos teacher board, I am also able to bring up one of the students' work. So I can choose a student that got a check mark, or I can choose a student that got an X, and we can talk about it as a group. I am also able to move one away so that we can talk about it and say, well, wait a minute, what did we do wrong here? Or what can we do? And notice that message at the top. Have you found all the matches? Not yet. Keep thinking. I'm going to go ahead and put this back. And then you'll see that metacognitive question, or just a compliment. And we always try to compliment the effort, not getting it right or wrong. So you'll see that message. Fantastic effort using schemas. So we went back and forth between praising the effort and making good connections with what we want them paying attention to, and then asking them to perform a gesture, to let us know how they liked the activity, all of that feedback that we really want to get from students. So if Desmos is exciting to you, we can make sure and go deeper in there, and you can see all of the pre-made activities besides the one that we created for ShipShape sorting. But it is honestly a fabulous math platform, whether you want to design your own activities or you just want to use some that are ready-made. And it does go really seamlessly into Canvas and Haiku and Google Classroom and all those good pieces. All right, so where are you at with ShipShape sorting? How many of you like, yeah, I need a little more time? Yep, I'm with you there, Cindy. The first year, I kind of kept looking at it and I'm like, I know that's what the research says, but it's really hard. So if you're there, keep going at it and then watch the video again so that you can see the experts and how they designed the activity. And remember to keep going back to, what pieces do I have? How would that look if I were making gestures? We don't spend a lot of time on the review problems. These are the individual practice problems. And you'll notice that one of these problems is likely what we pulled for our number talk connection. So if you are doing that, the workbook, you could have those individual practice, you could do it as homework, but we left those pieces in. Therese, did you want to ask a question about what you're thinking about the Desmos activity before we move on?
I have to watch the video.
Okay.
Because did I raise my hand?
You put it in chat. You said I'm not doing well.
Well, you said, how's everybody doing it? I'm like, I'm not doing well.
That's okay.
I want to say I suck, but I use the word suck. Like, I'm trying. I'm like, oh my God, and the other thing that I do notice is like, I could not focus while you were talking.
Sorry.
No.
No, that's bad on my part. I should let people
No.
quiet
But it was profound. So I'm like, I need to be quiet. Like, if I'm going to be talking, like if I'm teaching the math, I need to, for those kids that need it quiet, like you got to turn it off and just limit what you say and then go quietly to a student instead of talking near them. So
Yep.
that was just a teachable moment for me, but you had to talk because you've got to share with us.
I didn't have to talk. I could have totally been better at what I'm doing here and not talked. So that's a very
Well, I'm
good
going to blame it
reminder.
on you then that I didn't get it.
You can totally blame it on me because I did not give you think time. I interrupted. And if you're really trying to process what's written, by throwing that auditory in there, no wonder you couldn't pay attention to both.
Well,
And I'm loud. Good luck
confirming
ignoring
my
it.
defeat.
Nope. So yes, absolutely watch the video.
It's, you got to give them think time. And it has to be
Absolutely.
more than like a minute or two.
Completely. So I will do better next session.
Oh, just me.
Are you really wanting someone to? Eurisha would have to mute me. She's
I don't-
co-host.
Oh, that's so funny.
I'm also working on slowing down, and that's been a constant struggle for me. I talk too fast.
Well, there's so much to share. I mean, there really is.
It doesn't
So-
make it right. You guys have so much to teach, and we're telling you to slow down and give students time. I need to do a better job modeling that. So thank you for actually putting my mind where it belongs. We do have a digital version of the treasure map. There are an endless number of gold tokens if you want to give kids points or credit for finishing each lesson. They also have a printable version. So if you wanted to get gold stars or gold stickers, you could kind of make it a treasure map all the way to the end of the lessons. And then we're going to hand that off to Eurisha.
So as always, we want to begin with the warm opener and we want to end with the hopeful ending. Again, this is an opportunity for you to summarize some of the learning for the day. Again, invite voices into the space just to share their experience. You could also be forward thinking by sharing some information with students to prepare them for their experience for the next day. So today's hopeful ending asks us to connect our experiences today to something that we've done at home. And I'll give you an opportunity just to think about it for a moment. I'll give you some examples as well. So how can you use today's learning outside of school with family or friends? Or how have you used today's learning or today's activities outside of school with family and friends? An example might be, for example, with the sorting that you just did. Perhaps you've helped mom and dad with sorting clothes. That might be an example. You might also think about some of the questions that you came up with. Perhaps you play a game where you're asking each other questions. It may be connected to some of the equations that we work with and thinking about how we can combine things or thinking about things being the same. If we're thinking about combining or we're thinking about totaling things, perhaps they're helping someone in the family with counting out the dishes or adding up how many people are going to be eating dinner, or perhaps something connected to making their dinner. Whatever it might be, want to give you an opportunity to connect what you've done with us today with what you have done in the past at home or what you might be able to do in the future at home or with friends. So I will stop talking. I'll give everyone an opportunity to think. And when you come up with an idea, I'm going to ask you just share it in the chat. What connections might we make to what we've done today to some things you may have done at home or with families or with family? Okay, so looks like Sarah has used Desmos in the past, right, to get her students thinking about different styles of word problems. Molly, wait to share questions or ideas and allow students to make their own observations, okay? Christina listed, as with most of my new PD, I try it out on my sons. Good, they get to be the guinea pigs. So they will be practicing with all of these digital resources. Okay, that sounds good. Playing board games, Scrabble, Quirkle, thinking of different ways to do same moves. Cindy, thank you. Therese, using Desmos for at home, learning and exploration. Okay. Back fluency strategies. Okay. Wonderful. Regina, perhaps help a younger sibling learn by explaining what you are doing in school. Absolutely. and Amy giving lots of think time for games and homework. And we could go on. And it may be a wonderful thing. And I'll name it Megan, counting and sorting with my daughter and practicing facts with my son. I want to lift up how powerful it is to publicly name someone, like to say their name and name what they're doing. That's great. Or name someone and bring attention to their thinking. It's super powerful way to, again, affirm the contributions that students are bringing into the classroom. And it just makes you feel good when you're acknowledged. So especially if you see yourself calling on students when they've done something that perhaps isn't appropriate or isn't compliant with respect to the directions you've given. So taking that time to be really intentional about saying your students' names publicly and naming what they're doing well, super powerful and important to do. So I want to thank you all for sharing today. And I hope that you will give your students an opportunity to make connections to what's happening in the classroom with what happens at home with family and friends.
All right, so hopefully we were achieving the 4 goals that we set for today, really looking at the structure of all the lesson, the parts of Pirate Math Equation Quest, and then looking a little bit at fact fluency, the study stack option, or using the flashcards, having Desmos as an option if we want to give kids a digital way of sorting cards, and then those number talks that Euresia lifted so that we can have different strategies from our students brought into the room. And then already having those number talks aligned to the intervention lessons can be really helpful, because sometimes finding the number talk that you want to do is most of the battle. Hopefully you feel a little bit about what it was like to be a student with some of the activities, using the gestures and participating in Equation Quest and feeling how a card sort is different from solving a word problem. And then also knowing as a teacher what choices you might make and whether you want to use digital versions or if you want to use the original and go ahead and print off those activities. And we would always encourage you just to start with small steps. Pick part of it that works for you, or decide that you want to start with some of those early lessons, because trying to do everything is frequently just too stressful for us as grown-ups, and then we abandon it before we even know whether or not it's going to work with kids. So giving yourself the time and space to learn how Equation Quest grows over those 39 lessons, or taking a look at the number talks. Maybe those are an area that you're like, you know what, I could kind of use that. Or even pulling out those warm openers and hopeful closures that, you know what, I just want to get to know my kids a little bit better. I want to help them feel good in times when not a lot's feeling good right now, or they can feel the stress from their parents. So those are really nice ways that you don't have to recreate the wheel. You can use those warm openers and hopeful closures that Euresia's created and collated to kind of say, how can I bring this in without driving myself crazy trying to have these moments? So whether you start with one piece or several, or whether you wait till summer or fall, we want you to feel that you have some confidence that these are some good options, and then why they might work for kids. Because we really believe in that you're the decision maker. Because you are the closest to the student. We believe that the teacher, the student, and the content is really kind of that magical moment. And us sitting here and telling you, well, here's what the research says, and here's what Oakland School says, doesn't matter when you've got 3 or 4 or 20 kids in front of you. So really being open to which parts make sense for you and which things that you believe will move kids forward. So however you're choosing to use this with kids, we believe that you're making the right choice. You are the educated person, you are the expert. So we're hoping to just bring you with things that are a little bit easier to enact because you don't have to recreate them yourself. We do want to remind you that you want to be tracking your stipend activities, and you really want to focus on these on your own parts where it says we're going to check everything on Padlet. And remember, if you can't sign into Padlet, please put your name in the post. That way we're able to verify that for Sketch. But you're able to look at all of the different videos that make sense to you and that are exciting for the work that you plan to do with kids. If you're looking at more global interventions, then really focus on the green one and the red ones. If you are interested in the social emotional learning, that's everything in the red column that Eurisha has curated videos that will help you think about those ideas. We have those green columns that are about general interventions, the purple for fraction face-off, and then all of these videos. And know that there are a few more videos on the Pirate Math website that we did not link to the Padlet, but you can go ahead and watch those and just put a comment under any one of these so that you're able to customize it to what you're looking for. Eurisha, what was the one that you mentioned? Was it that you liked on Pirate Math? Was it the behavior one?
Yeah, it's the video that is in Pirate Math. It has the behavior component, but it just names some recommendations for when you're in the midst of the activities with your students, how you might be able to motivate them. And really, they could have put it under motivation as well, but it just names how we might again, publicly name a student, what they're doing, and say, I see, I notice, and really say the specific thing that they're doing, like counting on or whatever it might be. And they name that as the ripple effect, believing that as other students hear you doing that, then they'll be reminded of what they should be doing or what they might be doing to stay on task. So it's some other strategies that are named there, but I thought that they seem really beneficial for in the moment support of your students.
And right now you're looking at the Pirate Math Equation website where all of those videos are available. And then we did have some that were also linked to the Padlet. But any of the videos you choose are going to be really high quality and aligned with the research. We have our hopeful ending and just encouraging you just 1% better. Whether we're talking about fact fluency with kids or we're talking about adults and getting things going, just a little bit is going to get you a lot further than trying to do everything at once. I don't know about you, but if you try to like lose weight and exercise and be a better person, good luck. So I appreciate those of you that called me out today on talking too much. I will try to be 1% better next time you see me.
I wasn't saying you were talking. I did not mean that.
No, Kim put it in chat that someone should mute me.
Oh.
I appreciate that because we want that interaction with teachers. We want you to feel comfortable and being honest about, yeah, we're working on it too. So thank you. It's been a really engaging session. If you have questions, we're happy to stay on with you. I will post the video and the slides and just keep tracking those on your own hours. We see you again June 7th, if this is the only intervention that you're doing. And then we'll see you live on June 21st so we can give you some goodies and make sure you're all ready to use the materials. So any questions for us? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.